Good morning and welcome. You're watching Times Now. This is a continuous coverage that we are getting for our viewers and rather been a non-stop one since the last 2 days because the events that have now unfolded in the Middle East, West Asia for us is now looking upon as far as when it comes to a bigger conflict and escalation of sorts. Within hours of the joint strikes that are being carried out by the US and Israel, Khamenei, the Iranian supreme leader, has been killed. Now, will it drag in other countries as well? Will it be a direct or an indirect escalation that we are looking at of the Middle Eastern crisis? Let's first, up top of the hour, begin with this update that is now coming in. Because now will Europe also now come in as far as when it comes to the Iranian strikes are concerned? Now, according to reports that France, UK, Germany are also weighing in military action. So far, Europe has maintained distance, however, have condemned the strikes that have been carried out by Iran. But will it now drag in as far as when it comes to other countries in Europe in particular is concerned? Because there are certain reports that suggest that Europe is now planning defensive strikes on Iran.
Because till now there was escalation in West Asia, but now we are learning that as far as France, UK, Germany are concerned, they've said that they will also retaliate. They have a plan in action and they are in fact saying that a defensive action is being planned and they are planning the defensive strikes on Iran is what we're learning. As far as UK is concerned, remember, they have given 2 of their bases to the United States for attack on Iran. As far as France is concerned, they have given their warships. They are heading towards the Red Sea is what we are learning. Both of these countries have come out in support of the United States as far as attack on Iran is concerned. And now France, UK and Germany have said that they're planning a defensive action that could include strikes against Iranian military capability. So that's a big decision. They have come out in support of Donald Trump and the United States.
Well, Colonel Utkarsh Rathod continues to be with us here in the studio. Say, sir, what is your assessment? Will it now lead to a bigger escalation?
I'm seeing a conflict actually broadening here. As you know that all the Gulf states were hit by Iran and they are all, they have condemned it and they can soon also well join. And most surprise entry is from France and Germany. They were distancing themselves from this particular conflict. UK, of course, started with America and Israel in the initial days of the initial hours of the attack. So now we see that they're slowly and gradually Trump is gathering the supporters and the epic fury is actually now becoming a storm in the Gulf.
Well, that seems to be as far as this development is concerned. Patikrit continues to be with us and Sushant Sareeen is also joining in. Sushant, it's been a very busy weekend for you as well because you've been giving your point of view and a better understanding of how the world situation now seems to be developing. Will Europe also now come in? Because there has been an attack and a targeted strike, what is being reported on a UK airbase being reported in Cyprus. Was that expected?
Well, not entirely unexpected. I would imagine that, with the conflict in the Middle East picking up, I think some of the European countries which are feeling somewhat jilted by the United States, and the Americans were saying that, it's we who come to your assistance, not that you come to our assistance. I think they've seen this as an opportunity to actually play their part and convince the Americans of the value of the transatlantic partnership. And they will use this particular conflict to increase, to win brownie points in the United States. But look, if the British, the French, apparently there's some talk of the Germans also jumping in. I think there will be a limited intervention from them because their focus will remain on the European theater where they see an existential threat coming to them from Russia. But I think they will put in some, throw in some of their lot with the Americans. How much remains
No, but Sushant, what if President Trump eyes Greenland next?
I think nobody, I think it's only you who's talking about Greenland right now. I think as of now, for the next 2 weeks, I think we are going into wars week after week. So it's like very busy time for all of us, probably the entire 2026. But the thing is that maybe Greenland has been pushed into the background. I don't think the Americans are going to make a play for Greenland right now, unless, of course, and this is a very, very speculative thing I'm going to say, this war actually starts widening. See, as of now, this war is limited to the Middle East and it's limited to Iran and its surrounding areas. But, if it drags on for a fair bit of time and other bigger countries jump in, I think what the British and the French and the others are doing is a bit of virtue signaling. But if actually, the Russians, although I don't see how the Russians will jump in because they are caught up in their own theater. The Chinese, I'm not entirely sure if the Chinese have the wherewithal to jump into this conflict. They can give
all right, because till now there was escalation only in West Asia, but now more and more countries are joining in as far as US's attack on Iran is concerned. Stay on with us. We have another breaking update coming in. After UK pledges support to US, Iran has in fact attacked the airbase in Cyprus. Suspected drone attack on UK base in Cyprus is what we're learning, and now a big statement that is coming from UK Defence Ministry. They've said, and I quote, a midnight strike hit the base there in Cyprus. No casualty has been reported so far. So that's as far as the attack on the UK base is concerned. On that, let me go across to my colleague Mayank, who's been tracking all the details. Good morning, Mayank. We're learning that UK, France, Germany, they have lent their support to US as far as attack on Iran is concerned. But now there has been an attack on UK airbase in Cyprus in the last 24 hours. Yes, we have seen attack on US bases in West Asia, but now this has gone beyond that area. One airbase in Cyprus has been hit.
You're absolutely right. The sophistication of attacks and the sphere of attack, envelope of the attack is also widening. So in that case, it is quite natural that the kind of projectiles which are long distance projectiles, and these are called area weapons, which hit at a wider area. So that can encompass the places which belong to other countries as well. So keeping that concern, it becomes important for them also to keep their not only the material but the people also safe. So it becomes incumbent upon them that they appeal not only to the Iran government, but also they appeal their people also to let them know that they are against these kind of attacks, which are getting indiscriminate with each passing moment. Also, if you see the kind of attacks which Iran has started carrying out it's trying to hit all the military bases, which are maritime forces, which are air bases of the Americans, which are the personnel, which are logistic bases or forward administrative bases.
Yes.
So that is also becoming a matter of concern. And as I said, as I began with, that sophistication is increasing actually. The kind of hits by the missiles are getting deadly. And as Americans have already affirmed
defensive action is something that all of these countries are now maintaining, that they have the right to defend their sovereignty, their territory, because this escalation, what is being said, as we're going to play out what the UK Prime Minister has said, because mainly when it comes to the British personnel, they barely saved their lives when Iran struck a military base in Bahrain. So let's play out what Keir Starmer has said as far as giving US the permission for somehow to use their base is concerned. But all of these countries in Europe are also now war ready.
Yesterday, Iran hit a military base in Bahrain, narrowly missing British personnel. The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians, putting British lives at risk, and hitting countries that have not been involved.
So let's talk about what happened in the beginning of the year in 2026. Well, that was when it comes to the kidnapping of the Venezuelan president, a smooth operation that was carried out on part of the United States. And is it now trying to pull off a Venezuela and Iran? However, it seems highly unlikely because it was right in the end of the second month of 2026, on the 28th, when these joint attacks, these strikes were carried out on part of the US and Israel. Because President Trump now goes on to say that what we did in Venezuela, according to him, it's a perfect scenario. And once again, seems to be now invoking and appealing the people of Iran to stand up against the regime.
All right.
Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. And sadly, there will likely be more. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization. They have waged war against civilization itself.
We have another breaking update coming in. Iran's security chief has made a fresh push to resume the talks with the United States. Iranian security chief has made a fresh push to resume the nuclear talks. Remember that were already going on. Two level of talks had already happened, and now another statement that is coming from Iran's security chief that has now made it clear that they want to resume talks with the United States.
So is that still a possibility, Patikrit, looking at the current situation? Because Iran is of the point of view that we were still having talks in Geneva when US and Israel decided to attack.
Well, if they go for talks now after the death of Khamenei, then within the country, their credibility will be completely at its lowest. You know, there's a loss of face they might face. But otherwise also, see, Iran has its own limitations. I mean, you know, they know that they can't continue it for months. However, I don't know whether these kind of statements have been taken officially, collectively, or individual statements coming. Couple of more issues. See, Trump also would prefer this to end soon, because if it drags for months, he would face pressure back home. There are already congressional moves to restrict, for a voting to restrict his ability to use military. And let's understand, you know, this war, if the Europeans enter, they would. But the possibilities of terror attacks in Europe, where there's a large immigrant population from Middle East, goes up manifold. Secondly, you know, on the issue of Russia and China, I just want to make one statement. Russia may not directly get involved in Iran, but don't be surprised if Russia pounds Ukraine with a fresh wave of massive attacks. That's the way that they will indicate to the Europeans that restrict yourself to Europe itself. China, this is the second country after Venezuela from which China was getting large amount of oil through non-dollar routes. Now, whether China can't enter this war, but if they would do some kind of military exercise to indicate something, or they plan something in Taiwan, which I'm not sure, but I'm just speculating, we can't rule those things out. And this war, as of yet, it's no more just an Israel-America versus Iran conflict. It's a regional conflict taking shape, which is not going to end.
But a quick comment from Sushant, because Sushant, would you believe that President Zelensky doesn't seem to be happy with the, you know, the developments have now been taking in the Middle East, because the focus shifts of those allies who were actually supporting Ukraine to what's now happening in the Middle East?
Yeah, look, Zelensky thinks he's the center of the universe and the world and the universe revolves around him. It doesn't. And I think he needs to be realistic about what his options are and what are the various avenues open to him, especially because the Americans seem to be kind of getting tired of the war in Ukraine and would like some kind of a deal, even if it's at Ukraine's expense. So I think Zelensky's cribbing is entirely understandable from his perspective, but I'm not so sure how much traction it's going to get. Second, look, I don't see the Chinese jump into the fray. Maybe, yes, I agree with Patikrit. They could try and do something, you know, in their area of dominance. But I don't think they're going to tip the apple cart just yet. I'm not quite sure if they're quite prepared for the kind of widening of the conflict that will happen. The Chinese are not that game. They can make up for their oil supplies buying more from the Russians. But look, the fact of the matter remains that this war, I don't see how it can end anytime soon now without ensuring that Iran is completely emasculated. Look, you know, with all the regional allies of the United States being brought into the range of Iranian missiles and suffering damage, there is now going to be a clamor among the Arab states that, look, Iran is a clear and present and existential threat to all of us.
I'm just interrupting you, Sushant, because now we are looking at, as far as the repercussions of what happened in the weekend is now reflecting when it comes to the Dalal Street. As far as stock market is concerned, it has opened up. It's a Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Akansha will be taking us through the updates there, because this seems to be the geopolitical situation that will have its influence and impact across markets across the world.
All right, so the markets have opened and we're learning that the Sensex has crashed 3,000 points in pre-open trade. Global war has jittered the Indian markets, is what we're learning. The markets will actually open at around 9:15, but as far as the pre-market is concerned, there is meltdown on the Lal Street is what we can see. As far as Sensex is concerned, it has crashed 3,000 points in the pre-open trade is what we can see.
All right. Well, we also have Peter joining us here on the broadcast. Peter, thank you very much for taking out your time. Do you have, an assessment as far as when it comes to the markets are concerned? UAE decided to shut it down. Crude oil seems to be when it comes to the main highlights there and the American interest that seems to be focusing here. Do you believe that there is going to be a global impact of the weekend bombing that happened between Israel, US and Iran?
Well, closing the Strait of Hormuz is going to have an immediate impact on world oil prices. And if this war goes on, Trump said today that he thinks it could go on for 4 weeks or so. That's going to have a devastating impact on the global economy. And the stupidity of it is that from Trump's narrow self-interest, this is going to hurt his base. I mean, his approval ratings are already in the toilet in the United States, record lows. And his party is very worried about the midterm elections that are coming up. And one of the big complaints of his supporters is that the price of everything in the United States is much too high. And this is only going to make things worse. I mean, everything about this is not only criminal and illegal and in the U.S. unconstitutional, but it is so stupid. And they go into this without in any way justifying it or explaining it to the American people.
All right.
And without explaining what the end game is or the strategy. And so this is even from Trump's standpoint, a disastrous policy. From a human standpoint, it's even worse.
All right. Stay on with us. In fact, let me go across to my colleague Hina, who's been tracking all the details. Hina, the markets have opened and we can see that there is bloodbath on the Lal Street. Take us through the updates. We're learning that the Sensex has also crashed 3,000 points.
Well, in the pre-open, both Sensex and Nifty had seen deep cuts. But when the markets have opened just now, we are seeing a cut of about 1,000 points. So it's not 3,000 as was the case in the pre-open. Now the markets have opened at 9:15. As we speak, Sensex is down about 1,060 points. It's trading at 80,226. So clearly there is a sea of red, but they have been... this is something that the markets, in fact, had expected only. So this is not something which is unusual. We were expecting markets to open in deep red, and that exactly is the situation right now. While Sensex is down about 1,000 points, as far as Nifty is concerned, it's seeing a cut of about 323 points. Nifty is down 1.24% at 24,885 right now. So clearly, over 1% cut is being seen in both Sensex as well as Nifty, but we'll have to wait and see how the day progresses. If there are some important developments that take place with regard to what's happening in the Middle East, then markets are going to be reacting accordingly. But right now, the Sensex is down about 1,000 points, and there's a bit of a recovery also that we started seeing. Okay. So as of now, there is deep red that we are seeing, but it's not as bad as what the pre-open had shown us, which was a cut of about 4,000 odd points initially for Sensex.
All right. So sea of red as far as the markets are concerned. It remains to be seen how this pans out during the day. Thanks so much, Hina, for getting us all those details. I request all our guests to stay on with us. We'll take a very short break and we'll be right back with more news and updates on the other side.